Okay, people, all right, all right. Welcome and thanks for staying with us and never going anywhere. You're still tuned into Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja, your radio experience you can count on. We have about 24 minutes until we wrap it up here in the studio. And the second segment of the show is one that we all are guilty of, And again, your good health is my concern. It's our concern right here collectively at Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja, your radio experience you can count on, because if you're not healthy, who will listen to me? Nobody. You'll be too tired to do that. But I have with me Oluwatoyin Adeomi in the studio. Did I get that right? She is the program officer for Healthy Foods Policy and Cardiovascular Health. Thank you so much for joining us on this.
Thank you.
On the show. Now, Tessie Nongo Maina also did not go anywhere. She's right here like she never left. She's the health communications specialist for Network for Health Equity and Development. Thank you so much for staying right there.
My pleasure.
Okay. Now, when we're talking about salt intake, because the conversation today is about mindful salt intake, and it's something that we don't think is very important. Why is it a conversation that we should reiterate most times?
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Cardiovascular disease is becoming a challenge these days.
Okay.
And then from studies, it's shown that it's estimated that 17.9 million people died from cardiovascular disease in 2019. Mm-hmm. This actually represents 32% of all global deaths. And then over 3/4 of the cardiovascular disease that happen, this actually take place in low and middle income countries.
Okay.
And then in 2013, the World Health Assembly, they agreed that to prevent this issue, because it's actually a global issue.
Sure.
They agreed to 9 global voluntary targets of prevention and control of NCD.
Okay.
That's non-communicable disease, which include a 30% reduction in the intake of salt by 2025. And you agree with me now that this 2024 already, and a lot of Nigerians are not aware. And then as a result of this, WHO, the World Health Organization, they've recommended that 5 grams of salt should be taken daily.
Okay.
That is throughout the day, that the salt that is permitted to be taken as we woman being is 5 grams per day. And currently in Nigeria, we are doing 5.8, which is actually very high compared to what the World Health Organization recommended. And then in 2019 alone, we have over 69,000 deaths happening as a result of this cardiovascular disease in Nigeria. And then recently, over the time when we're growing up, you will agree with me that when you talk about cardiovascular disease, you've seen it in the maybe in the people that are already 60 above. But now you see that 20, 30 are now coming down with these ailments, which is very alarming. As in, if you check family in Nigerians now, you see that at least one or two, almost in the families in Nigeria, they can tell you of one person that died as a result of this. And this actually can be, we can actually do something about it.
Okay.
We don't have to die. People don't have to die because of these ailments. And then sometimes people have a lot of they come up with disease like maybe stroke, hypertension. These are the health implications actually that is caused by the salt intake. Even in home, sometimes even when you go to restaurant, when they serve food, you see people still yes, because of the way our mouth has our mouth has actually acclimatized to that taste over the years, as that's what we grew up with. We want to eat, want to feel the salt and see that it's tasty, but being tasty doesn't mean it's equivalent to we eating healthy.
And most times, if you go, that's why Nigerians go out of Nigeria. Most times they are not able to eat the food that other people eat there. Yes,
I go with you. I think I want to say something about that. I agree that there was a time a friend of mine traveled, and then he said, when you should travel to, you can say the food is bland. I think that's how it should be, because we have to be mindful of what we eat these days. And then these days we tend to consume a lot of processed foods. All of us are being busy, mothers are busy, fathers are busy, and then when we're just coming from work, we just quickly pick a processed food for our children so that something fast.
Busy
Everybody
and tired.
is busy. Everybody wants to do sharp, so that okay, food is ready and all that. We just go into the store and just pick something that within 5 minutes you're done with it, and everybody can eat. And then these are what actually has been causing this issue, because the kind of salt in processed food is very high. Because they've been processed, you might not really feel the taste, because they are already, that's why they call it processed, because it's already, they did this in such a way that you cannot actually feel the taste. These are salt that when you eat at home, when you put it in your food at home, at least the taste will be shown that this is
excess.
You might not even be able to eat it if you put that amount of salt in your
processed food.
Yes, even in your food at home. But when you go to these stores, you just pick it up and eat it. And then a lot of Nigerians, young people, are coming down with these ailments every time. Every time you go to the hospital, you see young Nigerians dying as a result of this. This is actually a global issue. So that's why Network for Health Equity and Development is collaborating with Global Health Advocacy Incubator to advocate. We're actually advocating to the government to put in place mandatory sodium reduction regulation in place, so that they can regulate this food that are being processed from the industries. And of course, there's also a part of it that we're also talking to the public, and that when you're cooking, there's a way you can also reduce the amount of salt you put in your food at home.
The thing is, most times people say, I don't know how true this is, and that's why we have you here, that the cubes, seasoning cubes that we have, a lot of people say that that also has content of salt in it, high content.
Very
high.
Okay,
let's have Tessie talk about it.
Brilliant Cubes are the number one culprits. They have very, very high sodium content, which is, as in, they have dangerously high sodium content.
And we'll still put it and
we add it and add on. The problem with Brilliant Cube is when you break it and put in a spoon, the measurement you get in it is not the equivalent measurement of salt. It has been compressed because it has been processed. If I fetch that amount of salt and add to my food, I'll probably think it's too much salt. But I've had people who say, I don't use salt, I only just put seasoning cubes in my food. And then at this stage, you will see them add jollof rice seasoning, then we'll add bouillon, then we'll add all those other spices that are already loaded with salt. Then we still pick our processed food that have salt and add again. So it's too much, and they're the number one culprit as far as salt is concerned.
Bouillon. So what can we do now that we know the problem? What can we do? Because it is a problem. Someone who has tasted salt all their lives, or bouillon, a lot of bouillon in their food, it will be hard to retrace your steps to say, I'm no longer.
Another thing is they've done well in this, and it's approved, and then of course, and they are going to, which is going to be implemented. Another thing is we're also advocating for the agencies that is in charge of food, that's in charge of this industry. This is NAFDAC. We also are advocating to them to put in place a mandatory sodium reduction regulation, so that the public themselves, we can actually, I don't want this thing is called for them to even know the implication of what they are doing, what they are consuming on daily basis, that this is actually affecting their health. You see people saying, if it's not tasty, I won't be able to eat it. There's nothing like that. It's a gradual thing. We should reduce it gradually. Before you know it, the way your tongue acclimatizes to that salt, the high salt intake, the saltness in the tongue, that's the same way it is going to acclimatize. The thing is, reduce salt, especially for those people that have hypertension.
Okay, so before we even start talking about reducing the salt, what are the risk factors? Because if people know the consequence of what they're doing, it will either deter them or it will encourage them. So let's hear, what are some of the risk?
And there's a lot of risk factor when it comes to high intake of salt, and one of it is hypertension, and stroke, and then there's kidney disease, and of course there's also gastric cancer. You know, all these things are being caused. Sometimes people will say, oh, it's my village people. There's nothing like your village people. It's just for you to change your habit. You know, it's an habit that has been inculcated over a lot of pay out of pocket in our hospitals. Yes, in hospitals. So you can imagine you want to focus to that person, a child that came down with all these ailments, or a young person, or a father or a mother. So the number one is about income even in the house. Then the economic factor is part of it, and then your health. You know, health is also very key. You know, and your health is also very key. And another thing that people should also consider is, you know, when this actually contributes to the nation GDP.
Or you've never tried this product. Oh, this is new and it's relatively cheaper, so let me just take it
without checking
the content, without reading the labels or anything. So they detect, the industry usually detect our appetite for us, not the other way around. Like, so it's a psychological thing. It's a reverse thing. So until we begin to realize that we can actually make deliberate demands, but if there are no regulations, if there are no mandatory laws to say to the industry reduce this salt content, then they are not obliged to obey. They'll keep producing. But if there is a law, this empowers the consumer to say, okay, let us, you know, follow the regulations. Let's keep to what the government has said is good for our health. And then I can say, okay, when you do this, you give me the right to make informed health choices. Because when I go to the grocery store, if I see high salt and I choose to take it, it means I decide